My parents invited me to dinner only to tell me that all their inheritance would go to my brothers and sisters, not me. I had lived 35 years without ever thinking that a family dinner could shatter everything I believed in. The flickering candles on the dining table, the soft light of the antique chandelier, and the rich aroma of braised meat filling the air, it was all a perfectly planned trap that I fell into without a hint of suspicion. 2 weeks ago my mom called me. Her voice was sweeter than usual. "Sophia, come home for dinner. We haven't gathered as a family in so long." I hesitated. For over 10 years, I had grown accustomed to their conditional love. They only remembered me when they needed something. But a part of me still wanted to believe that this time would be different, that they genuinely missed me. So I drove from San Francisco to my childhood home in Sacramento, leaving behind a busy schedule and important meetings. I arrived with hope, but within minutes of sitting at the table, that hope shattered like a wine glass slipping and breaking into pieces. "Mom and Dad want you to know now so there are no misunderstandings later," my younger brother Parker smoothly said, as if rehearsed. He leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms, his face barely concealing his satisfaction. Beside him, my younger sister Olivia twirled a golden strand of hair around her finger, a smirk playing on her lips. As if she had just won a big bet, I put down my fork. The braised meat that Mom had so carefully prepared suddenly became impossible to swallow. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice dry, but I forced myself to remain calm. Mom, the one who had lured me home with the promise of a warm evening, sighed softly. "Your father and I have finalized our will. This house, the villa by Lake Tahoe, everything we have will go to Parker and Olivia." Her words fell between us like a knife, stabbing me right in the chest. I turned to Dad, hoping, praying that he would deny it, say it was just a cruel joke. But he only lowered his head, staring into his wine glass, not objecting. "I don't understand," I said, trying to find some logic in this. "Why, Parker?" He shrugged, amusement in his voice. "Because you don't need it, right? You have your own company, your own home, a stable life. Mom and Dad think Olivia and I need the support more." I scoffed, but there was no joy in my laughter. "What do you mean by support, Olivia? You're 28 and have never held a job for more than 6 months. Parker, how many times have you changed majors in college?" Mom and Dad paid for every semester while I spoke, my breath quickening. "And what about the money I spent helping you pay off the mortgage, covering utility bills, and repairing the house? And the 40,000 I invested in the villa renovation? Nobody remembers that." Olivia giggled, her eyes gleaming with mockery. "Oh, so you're counting every penny? That's disappointing, Sophia. You're rich. Do you really need to be so greedy?" I looked at her, disbelieving her audacity. "Greedy?" I emphasized each word. "No, Olivia, this is called fraud. This is called exploitation." Mom slammed her hand on the table so hard that the glasses nearly toppled over. "Enough, Sophia. Stop playing the victim. You always think about money. We did this not because we don't love you, but because we love all our children." I stared at her, cold fury spreading across my chest. "Love? You're pretending to be sympathetic, like someone who had their favorite toy taken away. We're all adults here, Sophia. It's time to learn to accept reality." I remained silent. Her words no longer angered me, they only made me realize I had been deceived my whole life. They never considered me part of the family. I was not a daughter, but their financial source. Slowly, I placed my hands on the table, gripping the edge of the tablecloth tightly. They don't need me, and I don't need them either. For 10 years, I believed that family was a refuge, that despite everything, they would value me as much as I valued them. But the truth was revealed. I was not a daughter but an Anne. And now that I was no longer useful, they were ready to discard me without remorse. I looked at the faces before me, Mom, who called me every time she needed something, Parker, who wasted a lot of my money on courses he never finished, Olivia, who never worked seriously but had enough designer clothes to fill 3 wardrobes. I laughed, but there was no joy in it. My voice dripped with bitterness. And what about the money I spent on all of you? Doesn't that deserve any recognition? Mom's voice trembled. What are you talking about, Sophia? Money has never been enough for you. Never enough, I repeated almost in a whisper. My throat was dry. Never enough, I said again. I've been paying the mortgage on this house for the last 6 years. I took out a loan when you were on the brink of bankruptcy. I paid for the villa repairs because you said you wanted to keep it as a family legacy. And now I'm not even part of this family. Olivia shrugged, raising an eyebrow. Nobody forced you, Sophia. You just love playing the heroine. Those words hit like a slap. You're right, nobody forced me. I met her green eyes, searching for a hint of remorse but finding only mockery. I did it because I thought family should support each other. But I was wrong. I'm done. I stood up, my voice cold. I'm done. I have no more obligations to you. Parker laughed, but there was a hint of worry in his tone. So you're just going to abandon your family? I looked at him steadily. Yes, and you'll soon understand what that means. I turned around and headed for the door without waiting for their reaction. Mom's voice rang out behind me, sharp and full of panic. Sophia, what are you doing? Family should stick together. You can't abandon us over a little argument. I stopped, an icy smirk on my lips. A little argument, I repeated, turning around. My eyes were like steel. This is not a little argument. This is betrayal. I quickly walked out, but before stepping over the threshold, Mom's voice sounded one last time, full of anger and warning. If you walk out that door, don't think you can come back. I didn't stop. I didn't need to come back. I had all the answers. On the way back to San Francisco, my chest felt heavy as if a huge stone was pressing on it. My mind was spinning with the bitter words from dinner, the contemptuous looks from Olivia, Parker's smug smirk, and the suffocating silence of my parents. The buildings rushed past the window, the streetlights stretching along the boulevard in endless, empty strips of light. I used to call this place home, but now it was just a black hole that had swallowed all my efforts and love. Back in my apartment, I threw my bag on the couch, poured a glass of wine, and collapsed onto the sofa. A long sigh escaped me. I had no strength left to be angry, only fatigue and exhaustion. Then I opened my banking app. $200 a month, that's how much I had been paying for them all these years. $500 for the mortgage, $600 for utilities, electricity, water, internet, Parker's expenses, expensive gifts that Mom suggested for holidays. Vacations that I was invited to and then paid for. A wave of betrayal washed over me, hot and thick, sticking in my throat. I had invested everything in this family like a fool, and to them, I was just a walking wallet. I clicked cancel recurring payments. The screen flickered, and it felt like I had broken an invisible chain that had bound me. I knew they wouldn't let this go so easily. The first call came in the morning, Mom's number. I ignored it. The second, third, fourth, she didn't give up. On the fifth, I turned off the sound and let it go to voicemail. I made myself some coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and checked the message. Sophia, you can't imagine how hard it is at home right now. Don't be selfish, family should help each other. I set the phone aside. Before I would have answered immediately, but now I knew she wasn't calling to protect me. Later I listened to the voicemail. Dad said, Sophia, you need to reconsider your decision. Mom is very upset. You can't break ties over a little misunderstanding. We're family. I let out an empty laugh. Family? If I was family, why did they never support me? Olivia called during the day. I declined. A second later, her message arrived. Sophia, you're so petty and selfish. I looked at the message, a bitter smile on my lips. Olivia thought she was better than us. That she didn't want to help, that she could say she was good. Olivia, do you really think you're better than us? That you didn't want to help? You could have said so right away. Instead, you pretend to be good. You've destroyed the family. Congratulations. I laughed drily bitterly. Did they really think I was to blame? Then Parker called. This time I answered. What do you want, Parker? I asked it. Sophia, what the hell are you doing? You're taking away your support from Mom and Dad just because they didn't leave you an inheritance. You're a greedy leech. I cut him off. This isn't about money, Parker. It's about the respect I never got from you. Parker hissed, you're a poisonous snake. You think you can abandon your family without consequences? Just wait and see. He hung up without letting me respond. A chill ran down my spine. They wouldn't stop. I looked at my phone, at the contact list. The names Mom, Dad, Olivia, and Parker glowed on the screen. People who had relied on me my whole life, but turned their backs as soon as I stopped giving. Not one of them was sorry, not one of them said they were sorry. Only anger, threats, and insults. I gripped the phone tightly, then slowly, one by one, pressed block number. Their names disappeared from the list. For the first time in years, I felt at peace. I knew they would try to come back, but at least for today, I could sleep without the burden of their demands and accusations. I set the phone aside, took a sip of wine, and for the first time in years I smiled. I was free. 3 weeks passed in ominous silence. Blocking them meant no guilt trips, no endless demands. I focused on work, built new habits, and for the first time in years, lived without the suffocating burden of obligations. But I wasn't naive enough to think it was over. And I was right. On Friday afternoon, sitting in the conference room waiting for a client presentation, my phone vibrated urgently with a message from Mom. Sophia, there's an important family meeting. You need to be there at 7:00 p.m. at the old house. This is not an invitation. It's your responsibility. I closed my eyes, irritation flaring inside. This wasn't a gesture of goodwill, it was a trap. I could have ignored it, continued my new life, but some foolish part of me still believed in miracles, wanting to see what they would do next. I sent one word in response, okay. Arriving, I saw Parker's BO and Olivia's bright pink Mini Cooper neatly parked in the driveway. As I approached the porch, Mom instantly opened the door. Her face wore a fake, strained smile. Sophia, you finally decided to come home. I entered, and the once familiar home now felt suffocating. Dad sat in the center of the living room, his face serious. Parker and Olivia lounged on the couch, their eyes gleaming with triumph. Something was off. I slowly pulled out a chair, sat down, crossed my legs, and folded my arms. So I said calmly, what's this about? Dad cleared his throat, his gaze sharp. We need to resolve this tension. I let out a dry laugh. Tension? You mean the fact that I stopped paying for you all? Mom spoke softly. Sophia, you overreacted. We only wanted the best for you. Parker snorted. Did you even think before abandoning us? Don't you see how selfish and immature you're being? I clenched my jaw, my voice dangerously low. Selfish. Immature. I had kept this family afloat for over 10 years. If anyone here was selfish, it was all of you. Olivia crossed her arms, her voice soft but venomous. You're playing the victim, but honestly you're just angry that Mom and Dad didn't leave you an inheritance. Cold fury blazed in my chest. I slowly stood up, my gaze sweeping over their faces. I came thinking you might have realized your mistake. I laughed sharply. But no, you're the same leeches, selfish and ungrateful. Mom jumped up, her voice sharp as a blade. If you walk out that door, don't expect to be let back in. I stood by the door, my hand on the handle, meeting her gaze. My voice was cold as ice. I was never welcome here. I opened the door and left without looking back. Driving home, my heart pounded. I didn't know what they would do next, but I knew they wouldn't let it go so easily. And as expected, when I reached my apartment, I froze. My door was sealed with a thick layer of gray foam, covering the frame and spilling over the edges, hardened like cement. Someone had deliberately vandalized my home. I didn't need to guess who. I opened the camera app on my phone, my pulse racing as I rewound the footage. There he was in a gray hoodie and baseball cap, a smug smirk on his face, holding a can of foam and sealing my door. His hands moved deliberately, each motion an insult. He did this thinking I wouldn't fight back. He was wrong. Calmly, I saved the video and took clear screenshots of his face. I immediately called the police. Half an hour later, a young officer stood before my apartment. His expression a mix of sympathy and professionalism. I showed him the footage and explained everything. "Do you want to file a complaint?" he asked neutrally with a hint of hope that I would decline. I smiled coldly. "I didn't call you for a friendly chat." He nodded, opened his notepad, and began the report. "Parker is your brother?" he asked. I met his gaze, my voice icy. "Was it?" "Not anymore." The next morning, Dad called. "Sophia, dear, does it really have to go this far?" I called to drop the charges. "Parker didn't mean to harm you." I scoffed. "Not harm me." He sealed my door. What if I had an important meeting in the morning? What if there was a cat or a child inside? Dad fell silent. I continued, "You thought you could scare me, but I'll show you that you're wrong." "Do you really want to take this that far?" Dad's voice trembled. "Sophia, you're tearing the family apart." We never meant for this to happen." I let out an empty laugh. "No, Dad, the family tore itself apart a long time ago." 3 days later, exactly $33,000 was deposited into my account from their joint account. Not a word from Mom, not a peep from Parker, not even Olivia, who loved to taunt me, said anything. They thought money would make me disappear, but they didn't understand I no longer needed it. I stood before my apartment, the door already repaired, my fingers tracing the smooth surface. The $33,000 wasn't important. What mattered was that for the first time, they faced consequences. They could hate me, call me a traitor, but for the first time, I didn't obey. I smiled, took a sip of wine, and thought they had tried to break me, but they had lost. I thought that after the $33,000 they would leave me alone. But I overestimated them. Losing money was one thing. Losing control was another, and they couldn't bear it. When their usual manipulations failed, they struck dirty. It started with hypocritical messages from distant relatives whose faces I barely remembered. Aunt Susan wrote, "Sophia, I'm disappointed. Your parents sacrificed their whole lives for you, and this is how you repay them." Uncle Mark said, "Sophia, don't let money rob you of your humanity. Family is forever." Cousin Rachel wrote, "I can't believe you're so heartless. Your parents are about to lose their home, and you don't care." I read the messages, feeling a mix of amusement and disgust. I knew who was behind this. Mom, who couldn't win with logic, had unleashed a wave of fear and judgment, creating a new narrative. I was the ungrateful daughter who had abandoned her poor, aging parents, greedy, heartless, and devoid of humanity. But it was a lie. For 10 years, I had carried their financial burden, paying the mortgage bills and tuition for Parker and Olivia, asking for nothing in return. They weren't abandoned, they had used me. And I was done with it. I opened my laptop and logged into Facebook. I rarely posted anything, but today was an exception. I didn't need their love, I needed to strip them of their ability to lie. My fingers flew over the keyboard, the words clear and precise. I tried to be a good daughter. But they never truly loved me. For 10 years, I paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for my parents' mortgage, bills, and my siblings' education. I never complained because I believed family should support each other. But they made a will and left everything to Parker and Olivia. When I asked why, they said I had a career and didn't need it. They called me selfish and a traitor. Now they're lying, saying I abandoned them, that they're losing their home, that I'm heartless. The truth is, they're not losing their home, they're losing the free support I gave them for years. I'm not writing this for sympathy. I'm writing for those who have been used by their families. You don't owe them anything. Setting boundaries is not ingratitude, refusing to be used is not betrayal. Sometimes family is not about blood but about those who respect and value you. I left their lives and don't regret it. I hit post. Within an hour, there were hundreds of shares and thousands of comments. Some supported me, saying they had been in the same situation, urging me to stay strong, that I had done more than enough, admiring my courage. Others judged, saying family is imperfect but still family, that I shouldn't air dirty laundry in public, that it was shameful to expose my parents like that. I didn't care. I had expected it. 3 hours later, Mom called. "Sophia, what the hell are you doing? You're ruining the family's reputation." I calmly replied, "I'm telling the truth, Mom. You're the one who made me out to be the villain." Mom's voice trembled. "You'll regret this." I said, "No, Mom, you will." I hung up, feeling lighter than ever. They could no longer hide the truth, and I had regained my voice. A month later, I felt freer than ever. No more guilt-tripping calls, no more heavy messages, no one manipulating me. The void left by the loss of a toxic family was strange at first, but I soon realized it wasn't a loss, it was freedom. I threw myself into my career, leaving the chaos of the past behind, without those who drained my income. Money became mine. I enrolled in photography courses, something I had never dared to do before. I no longer looked like the woman who had been commanded, no longer spent money on spas and designer clothes. Dad, who had always been silent in the face of injustice, became a loader at a hardware store. There was no one left to pay his bills. Parker, who had laughed when I left, was now unemployed, with no one to finance his failed startups. Olivia, living in the illusion of becoming a social media star, found that no one would pay for her vacations and outfits. The family suffered, but I felt no guilt. I had given them a chance, and they had destroyed it with their greed. A year later, I met Alex. I wasn't looking for love, but he entered my life like a gentle breeze, asking for nothing, expecting nothing, unlike anyone I had known. He saw me for who I was, not for what I could give. We met on a hike with friends. I thought he was just another passerby, but he listened patiently, asking for nothing but me. For the first time, I didn't have to prove my worth. I didn't have to buy love, I could just be myself. We sat on the balcony of my apartment, the city lights twinkling below. No one controlled me, no one exploited me. The will, the humiliation, the betrayal, it was all in the past. Now I understood that it was the best gift they had given me. Sophia's story is not just about family betrayal, it's about the journey of someone who believed they were trapped in a cycle of exploitation. But this story proves that setting boundaries is not selfishness, it's self-respect. Losing a toxic family is not a loss, but an opportunity for freedom and happiness, and a chance to find people who truly value you. What do you think about Sophia's story? Have you experienced something similar, or do you know someone who has? Share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to the channel for more shocking, touching, and real stories about family.